everybody. So today we're going to talk some more about the GC research and the Galactic Center in general. I could talk about this all day. So I wanted to first say thank you though to everybody that has participated and given their information and sending their charts and I so appreciate it. It makes me really happy to see other people are interested in this too. So thank you. And if anybody else wants to be a part of the research, let me know. It's not too late. It's never too late. We got some more people this past week. So I'm always willing to include other people. I just so appreciate the interest and wanting to be a part of it. Today we're going to talk about the actual research from the participants, some of the numbers that I'm coming back with now about different things and some theories about some different things having to do with this. But before I start, I want to start with my disclaimer that I am not a Galactic Center expert. I'm not claiming to be. I have a lot of astrological knowledge, but this is one area that I am really just fucking with astrology. And just playing around with ideas and with theories. I reserve the right for any and all of this to be wrong later on if I find that it is. Because sometimes in research you find that you're not right. But I do feel like I am on a track. I do feel like I'm on a track. Don't know. I feel like it's on the right track. I feel like I'm on a track. But I wouldn't say that I'm right, if you will. I think it's way too early to say that. Anyway, so today we're going to talk about the trines. Now in the original questionnaire, in the questionnaire, in the original research, the trines were not a focus. It wasn't until I started looking at charts of conspiracy theorists and whistleblowers and people like that I started noticing the trines seemed to be important, along with Jupiter retrograde. That one also seemed to be important. Now the GC has so much energy, right? And I do think that that energy can manifest a lot of ways. I mean, you might find person with like GC conjunctions or whatever, they have an amplified need to express their truth, to seek their truth. They might actually have contact with things from the other side, other dimensions. I think that's possible too. I think the GC can manifest in a lot of ways. You'd probably want to obviously take the whole chart into account for that. But I do think it can manifest in a lot of ways for the person. Now, but I do think it's an amplifier. I do think it can warp and things like that I've mentioned before. Now, the Galactic Anti-Center, on the other hand, feels like a lightning rod for the overflow of energy from the GC, or even just like when energy is really getting going with the GC, in the GC, it strikes over on the opposite end in the anti-center. Something like that. I do think it kind of functions like a lightning rod. Now, the trines, I mentioned this before in blog posts and videos and stuff, but the trines, they are both a way to bring the Galactic Center shit down to earth. They are also a grounding for this lightning rod across the sky in the Galactic Anti-Center. So the trines do feel really, really important with actually being able to do anything with the GC energy or with the Galactic Anti-Center energy. Like they're a way to filter or direct that energy somewhere. I am very curious about people that don't have the trines, and most people do. Most people in this study do. This week it went down just slightly. I do expect these numbers to bounce around a little bit. But last week when I was doing the math, 89% of people in the study had the trines. This week it's 85%. I do expect there to be a little bit of bouncing, nothing major, unless we get like an influx of 30 people or something wanting to do this in 1 week, wanting to be a part of this. But I do expect these to kind of go up and down just a little bit, but nothing too extreme week to week. But I will keep y'all in the loop. So this week we have 85% of people having trines. There were a couple people that didn't when they volunteered as tribute this week. I am curious, and now it might be like, what is it like? It's like 7 people, I think, 7 or 8 now. 6, 7, 8, I can't remember the exact number. Not very many that don't, no, I think it's like 7, that don't have a trine to the GC, anything trine. And I do think, I'm very curious about what happens when you don't have a trine. What the hell happens with that energy? I mean, there's got to be another way to filter it, I would think, but lacking that trine to the GC or the sextile to the Galactic Center, it does feel like it would be difficult. Like you wouldn't really know what to do with the energy there, especially if you have a planet conjunct the Galactic Center or a planet conjunct the anti-center or both. It just seems like it would be difficult if you didn't have something to ground it and bring the shit down to earth. But okay, so in saying all of that, most people do have a trine, and the reason for that is the window of orb that I'm looking at is 16 degrees Aries to 6 degrees Taurus, from 16 degrees Leo to 6 degrees Virgo. It's a big window. It is wide net. I think that's probably the best way to do this for now, is to keep it wider. So that's altogether, that's 40 degrees that people have a chance for something to be trine. So it doesn't surprise me, but that this percentage of people looking at this particular thing ends up being higher than anything else so far. This doesn't surprise me. So 85% of people have this, have a trine to the GC. Now from there, I wanted to look at people that I wanted to break people up into camps. One camp of people that have a planet or planets or Chiron or Chiron trine the GC, and then people who have the major angles, ascendant, descendant, midheaven, and IC, and or one of the nodes, the north or south node. And I'm breaking these up because the planets in Chiron is not a planet, it's a big ass asteroid, but they're tangible bodies in the sky, whereas the major angles and the north-south nodes are not. So I do feel like there is a difference in the translation and in the bringing things down to earth when it comes to it being done through a planet or Chiron versus it being done through one of the angles or the north or south node. I do feel like there is a difference. There probably is. It might be more clear when it's a planet, more clear. I don't really know if clear is the right word, but it might be more clear when it's a planet. Versus, or cleaner, maybe? Cleaner might be the word. I'm not totally sure what the right word to use is. I don't want to say easier because I don't think anything with this is particularly easy. But maybe it's easier when it's a planet or Chiron versus one of the angles or the north or south node. Anyway, so when I did the percentages of these, I came back with, and for these percentages, I was only looking at, obviously, from the 85% that I mentioned having the trines. So for people, there were 56% of people that have one of the major angles or the north or south node trine the GC, 56%. 44% of people had a planet or planets and or Chiron trine the GC. This is actually more even than I thought more equal than I thought it was going to be. I mean, obviously the north south node and major angle camp has more, and I figured it would, but I actually thought that percentage would be a little higher than 56. It's really pretty close to being even, closer to being even than I thought it would be. Then when you break down, I wanted to see how many, not what planets, I haven't gotten into that yet, but how many planets or how many trines people have to the GC. I came back with 59% having one planet trine the GC, sextile the Galactic Center. I came back with 40% having two planets trine the GC, or sextile the Galactic Center. And I came back with 2 people having 3 planets trine the Galactic Center. Nobody had 4. It was just, 3 was the highest. Oh, sorry, I think I said the number. 1%. Came back at like 1%. 1% of people had 3 planets. So, this doesn't really surprise me either. I do remember seeing more people have just 1 planet. I know I'm one of those that only has 1 planet. I thought that number might be a little bit higher. There were actually more people with 2 planets, or a planet in Chiron or whatever, than I'd realized that there was. So here's why I'm looking at this, right? I'm thinking, because these are like translators, right? These are like ways to ground and bringing things down to earth and ways to translate. I'm almost thinking the more trines that you have, the more ways you have to do this translating or bringing things down to earth. You could probably use all of them, utilize all of your trines. Like for the people that have 3, they could probably utilize all 3 of their trines if they wanted to, and bring this shit down to earth in multiple ways and ground things in multiple ways. They probably could. I don't know if everybody always utilizes all of the trines in this way, from looking at it in this lens. But I do think that the more trines that you have, the more opportunities and the more avenues you have to bring this shit down to earth, or to ground this shit from the Galactic Center. There are more ways to do it, more ways to go about doing that. Whereas the people that only have 1 planet or Chiron, there's one way they can do this. And that's dependent on what planet we're talking about, or are we talking about Chiron? It just gives one vehicle to do it through. So the people that have 2 or more, they're kind of in a more advantageous position, having more opportunities, more ways to bring this shit down to earth. That to me this says, if you've got 1 planet trine the GC, or Chiron trine the GC, you better really fucking understand that planet. Whatever planet that is, or if it's Chiron, fucking understand Chiron. You need to know how this fucking planet functions in your chart. I think it's probably very important that you understand it in a very intimate way, because it's probably a much bigger deal than you may have previously realized. Like I know in my case, and this may not always be the case, because in my case, the thing that grounds is Jupiter. The grounding planet is Jupiter. And that's my chart ruler. So I already knew Jupiter was important, but for somebody who, say, I don't know, like has random, not that Mercury is random, right? But let's say Mercury isn't a major player in their chart for some reason. In the big scheme of things, Mercury is a big deal regardless, but in the big scheme of things in their chart, Mercury is not the biggest deal. But let's say Mercury is trine the GC and sextile the GAC. Well, to me, that makes Mercury a bigger player than it may have been not looking at it through the lens of the GC. Does that kind of make sense? I would become very, very, very familiar with the planet or Chiron that trines the GC. Same thing with the major angles and the north or south node. Now, because we're talking about angles and the north and south node, for the people that have the angles trine the GC, obviously become familiar with that angle. Become very comfortable though with the planetary ruler of that angle. So if you say, let's say you've got your Cancer midheaven is trine the GC. Oh no, actually that doesn't make any sense. Sorry. Let's say you've got your Leo midheaven. I'm just spitballing here, not making any sense. Let's say you've got your Leo midheaven and it trines the GC. Become very, very familiar with your sun. Obviously, you probably already are. I would become even more familiar with it. All of the aspects that it makes. everything about it, since the sun is the planetary ruler of Leo. That's what I would do in this case. I would do the same thing with the nodes too. Like, obviously become familiar with what if let's say you've got the south node trine the GC. Become very familiar with what your south node might be dealing with. If it's the north node, become very familiar with what your mission, one of your missions in this life might be. But also become familiar with the planetary ruler of your north or south node. I would certainly do that too. Absolutely. Become very, very, very familiar with this stuff. That's my advice. I don't really want to do like cookie cutter stuff like, if you have Jupiter trine the GC, this is what this might mean, or if you have Venus trine. I don't really want to do that, because I feel like the GC is one of those things. I feel like you can, and I certainly did like my own kind of version of cookie cutter things about the GC falling in the houses, though I did put the disclaimer on there not to take these as absolute truth, and to come up with your own ideas along with what I was saying. I don't want people to take this and be like, oh, that's right. I'm hesitant to do that here with the trines, because I don't want anything to get mistranslated, so, or lost in translation, or wrong. But I will say this, definitely pay attention to the planet or Chiron that is trine the GC, or the angle and the planetary ruler of that angle that's trine the GC, the north node or the south node, what they're telling you from your chart, and then their planetary ruler. I would definitely become familiar with all of those, with those in your chart. I would definitely recommend that. Okay, but anyway, I'm gonna get going. So if you want to follow us on Instagram, you can find us at Let's Fuck with Astrology. I'm at Saturn Season Astrology. Natalie is at Apaterno Astrology. If you want to like and subscribe to our shit on YouTube, eventually the majority of these probably will be moved to YouTube. Eventually, most of them probably will. There's so many between different platforms right now, because I'm trying to get my bearings as I'm doing this, but eventually these longer videos will probably go to YouTube strictly in the future, just letting y'all know. But you can find us on YouTube by searching for Let's Fuck with Astrology in the YouTube search bar. If you do the Reddit thing, come join us on the subreddit Let's Fuck with Astrology. If you're interested in the star cards, go to letsfuckwithastrology.com/star-cards. And if you want to be involved in this, by all means, it is not too late. Like I said, it's not. Let me know, and I'll get you the questionnaire. Or like I said before, if you don't want to do the questionnaire and you're just like, I just want to give you my information, I don't want to answer shit, that's fine too. That works as well. So, okay, y'all. I'll see y'all later.